Hello everyone, I'm Abby Rhodes, Marketing Manager for Caterpillar Safety Services, and I will be facilitating today's webinar event. We are pleased to welcome an international audience to this webinar titled Drive Safety Excellence, a Case Study in Preventable Vehicle Incidents. Before we kick off the presentation, I have a couple announcements. First, the phone lines are muted. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat areas of WebEx to communicate with me or to submit questions for our speakers, and we will use the last 10-15 minutes of the hour today for Q&A. And following the webinar, I will send the presentation slides and a recorded version of the webinar to everyone on the registration list. Now I am honored to introduce today's presenters. Dr. Mike Williamsen is a senior consultant with Caterpillar Safety Services. Mike has more than 25 years of experience in the safety profession and works with organizations in a variety of industries to build employee-driven safety culture excellence. Our co-presenter today is Jason Theodore. He is the Fleet Safety Coordinator for ATCO Electric in Edmonton, Alberta. Jason and his team have been engaged in Caterpillar's zero-incident performance process since 2008. Jason, let's get started.
Hey, Abby, thank you very much. Are you hearing me loud and clear, Abby?
I hear you loud and clear.
This is good. Thank you very much, those of you in the audience, for coming together for this webinar. As we go through it, you're going to find that, wow, there's a lot of material here that will make a difference in your organization. And for the past 4 years, Jason and I have worked together on and off on this topic and many more. And today you're going to get a chance to see the fruits of predominantly Jason and ATCO's efforts to eliminate incidents with respect to vehicles. Jason, any opening comments you want to make?
Really, it's I just hope people learn something from what we did.
Well, so here we go. Next slide. You know, the question is, what's the issue about vehicles? Everybody drives them. The question here then is, well, how many of you have been impacted as a result of a motor vehicle incident? And it could be personally, or a family member, or a work member. And the answer is, we all have. But you know, what got your initial interest in vehicles and incidents that go with them, Jason?
Well, I've been involved with vehicles for many years, but I remember specifically finding out my grandfather had passed away, and he was 82, but he golfed 3 times a day, and he was coming home from visiting my grandmother. It was a sandstorm in the area, and somebody went through a stop sign and run right into the side of him and killed him instantly. It just shows how much of a hazard driving can be.
You know, these are tragedies that occur. They certainly affect us, and they make sense in our lives and our focus for the future. You know, I'm going to share one with you. I was in the Marine Corps, and I had a weekend pass, and I was off duty driving a motorcycle, having a good time, when a person turned left in front of me, and I went through their windshield. And that was my ticket out of the service, not the way I had it planned. And it affected me, and certainly from a vehicle incident, it's affected me in the future. And probably every one of you in the audience has your own story that goes with this. Vehicle incidents are an important part of our lives and that of our families as well. Really, where we're headed to is that driving is high risk. It's high exposure. It affects our employees, ourselves, and our families every day. And part is our own issues, how well we're prepared. Totally outside of our control, as Jason explained with his grandfather, and my experience has happened, and people impact us, and we need to be prepared to do the best we can not to be involved in an incident. And as ATCO looked at their background, they found some disturbing realities. Jason?
Well, we went to 1970. Our company, our main focus in our company is building electrical lines. Everybody feels that, you know, electricity is our number one hazard. But when we took a look back to 1970, we found out that, geez, you know, 4 of the 7 fatalities that our company had were vehicle-related, which really brought forward the fact that, driving is a very high-risk activity that our employees undertake every day.
7 fatalities sounds like a lot, and it's for a 40-year period.
Yeah.
And it's been a tremendous focus for more as these events occur to reduce them, and that's the reason for this team. Tell us a little bit about realities in Canada.
Well, in Canada, one of the statistics we found was that 10 people die each day in a motor vehicle collision here in Canada. It doesn't seem like that big of a number when you look at 36 million people, but it's still a lot of people that die every day. The real is that driving is a high-risk activity.
And then, certainly the people, but their families and their companies and their relatives, and driving is a serious issue. Let's take a look at some stats within the United States. This is an international conference, and obviously Caterpillar is an international company. So looking at the National Safety Council data circa 2010, sort of the latest that's available, look at the 2 columns to the right. On-the-job fatalities, 3,783, down a couple of slots. Motor vehicle fatalities, 17,500. 5 times more fatalities on motor vehicles than on the job. And if we move over to the far right, let's take a look at medical incident rates or recordable injury rates. On the job, 3.3 per 100,000 hours, or 3% of the people involved with injuries in industry in the United States. And vehicles, almost double that, 6.4% of the people in for medical treatment as a result of a vehicle incident. So fatalities, injury rates, everything says we need to pay attention to vehicle incidents and do something about it rather than just live with the risk. And there's a number of studies that have gone on about how distractions increase your reaction time. Certainly those of you in the audience know about texting, 30% reduction in reaction time. Cell phone usage, and really is whether it's hands-free or talking on the phone, because your focus is away from driving as you're carrying on a conversation, whether it's on the phone or with somebody in the vehicle next to you. And then fatigue, and many of us put in a lot of hours. And there's a barrier we cross, and when we cross that barrier, action time dumps, and it's not good. And then, one of these we hear about, alcohol or substance abuse, and how that puts you at risk at the legal limit. Here in many states in the United States is 0.08%. What is it in
It's 0.08 as well.
So you can see that these other things that we often don't pay attention to, even worse than being at the limit with alcohol. So once again, we need to pay attention to vehicle incidents. Jason, here's an interesting graph that deals with data from ATCO. Explain that, please.
Well, one team got together. We went and looked at our preventable vehicle incidents. Now, this graph, it just displays the number of incidents that we've had since 1997 up to 2009. And what you'll see in this graph is the yellow line at the top indicates the total number of preventable vehicle incidents. And for us, preventable vehicle incident means any incident that involved damage, injury, or death, and that driver did not take reasonable actions to prevent occurrence. So
if somebody crossed the line and hit your vehicle, that wouldn't be a preventable vehicle incident?
No, not at all.
I noticed the one on the bottom, BPVI, so that's backing preventable vehicle incidents. Discuss that one a little bit.
Well, we took a look at is the number of incidents that we had were backing related, and we take a look at 33% of our incidents backing related, and it's been quite constant throughout the years. So it really shows us that backing into things is a major issue for our employees.
Here, let's see what you do about stuff like this.
what you'll see here is you see it's kind of like an incident reaction cycle, so to speak, that you would see here. So we would have, like for example, in 1999, we had a fatality. There was a heightened increase in driver observations in our company. Management, supervisors, employees were all talking about safe driving, and we saw a sudden decline in incidents. Same happened as soon as that focus was gone. It began to steadily rise right up until about 2004, when we decided, you know what, we need to hire a consultant to come in here and help our company to improve our safe driving on the highway. So we did that. The consultant went around, talked with employees. Focus again was on safe driving. Our numbers drastically decreased again, and you'll see the same thing happen as soon as our training started again. Management, supervisors, staff stopped talking about the safe driving aspect. It went on to the shoulders of the consultant and the team that was out doing the training. And even though we're providing excellent training, the incidents continued to rise until we had another change where we changed consultants, and again, we saw a decline in our numbers.
You know, Jason mentions the incident or accident reaction cycle, where when there are increased incidents or a trigger event, management demands more safety activities, and when there's more safety activities, incidents go down. Unfortunately, once that focus comes off, then we go back to kind of business as usual. And this graph looks very similar to what we see in rates in industry outside of vehicle incidents. That's going to be part of what we talk about today, and because this is a reality issue. Jason.
So what we see in this slide here, this is our PBI frequency, which is based on incidents per million kilometers. Top line indicates our total number of preventable vehicle incidents, and the bottom line indicates all preventable vehicle incidents that are greater than $1,000, resulting in injury or death. And in this period, we did not have any deaths or injuries, but what we did see in this is that the severity level from 2007 to 2009 was starting to come down again. So, we're getting better from a severity level, but the incidents from 2008 and up were starting to slightly rise. And so what we saw in this is that it wasn't good enough. We wanted to get better. Even though severity was coming down, we still wanted to improve. This wasn't good enough.
So the cost includes employee medical care as well as repairing vehicles. Interesting thing, you know, the inflation does exist, and so their costs are going down even though it costs more to repair both vehicles and employees. They're doing a lot of things right, and yet one of the pleasures of working with ATCO is that we're working, and zero is really our only acceptable answer, and that pulled together a team, even though you could say trending okay, not good enough. So let's take a look at what are we going to do about it. Now, from a standpoint, as Caterpillar comes in to work with people, we talk about kind of 6 levels of tools that people use to improve safety. The first one is compliance with the regulations, and it's just foundationally basic to safety. And obviously, the vehicles are in the correct condition, the people are trained. These compliance-related issues, ATCO did very well. And then, what do we see that just isn't quite right? And so we react to what we see. Level 3, kind of the tipping point in safety, are accountabilities for hourly and salaried people with respect to the issue that we're working on, and this really is a key. 4 is going out and either doing a survey or interviews, and Jason and the ATCO team that are working on this particular project went to the field to find out what reality is. That level 5 team, continuous improvement, rapid improvement workshop, is hourly and salaried people working on the issue, and that leads to a level 6, which is a passion for getting to zero, and that passion is a part of the team and of the people that the team impact. And zero is really where we're headed. And ATCO used this model engaged their people, and delivered solutions, they delivered accountabilities, and you'll see that as we go forward. So let's take a look at the members on the Preventable Vehicle Incident Team.
So what we did is we didn't want this to become a corporately driven team. We wanted to make sure that we had people from the field that actually are drivers be involved in making change in our company and helping us on our road to zero preventable vehicle incidents. And so we have myself and an HSE manager on the team, but we were more for providing
assistance.
Exactly. And really, we left it up to the team that was from the field level to come up with the solutions and the ideas that would best fit and that would be plausible for the people in the field to actually embrace and actually use.
So a Caterpillar person there kind of as a facilitator to keep things going and to use the tools that we use to get these teams focused on the particular issues. You'll see that as we go forward. The important part here is that this is predominantly a field issue. The employees mostly at risk on the job are hourly employees, service technicians, and the like. Often, well, their families across the whole organization, and you'll see that. But the objective here with field people is to make sure that the practical, day-to-day work-face issues are addressed and that the solution works for the people that are most at risk. As a part of our approach, we do a POP statement. What's the purpose? What are the outcomes that the team delivers? What's the process by which they do that? And so from here then, the purpose of this team, and all of those members discussed and decided to deliver processes, practices, and education that drives a zero preventable vehicle incident culture for all employees, both on and the job. Comments on this, Jason?
Well, what we find is preventable vehicle incidents is something that affects all of us. It's at work, at home, and we wanted to make sure that not only did we safe driving culture for our employees while they're at work, but we want them to take this home and be safe while they're driving around at home.
We saw that most of this occurs off the job, so very important to be handling at-home issues, off-job issues as well. And to, again, back to a Caterpillar approach, Fishbone Diagram or cause and effect diagram is a part of what we use. A fault tree, and the Fishbone tells us what the issues are, the complaints. The fault tree gives us a focus from all the data, and then those complaints become goals, and the goals are what the team delivers the solution to. And obviously, we're also looking at data. Comments on this, Jason?
Yeah, if we take a look at it, probably one of the most important things that we did was develop a Fishbone diagram. And as you can see, it's quite busy. But we had people from the field who were on our team come up with some of the things that they felt were issues for our employees out in the field. So we look at right from cultural, and when we look at cultural issues, what we're looking at is you see one there. It talks about cowboy mentality, and our job in our company is to basically make sure that the power's on for everybody. So, snowstorm and the power goes out. Sometimes people don't see driving as a risk, so they will drive in all sorts of road conditions just to get out there to try and get the work completed so that people have power again. We take a look at different types of distractions. Our drivers and employees are inundated by all sorts of different distractions, whether it's from personal issues right to issues such as we have laptops in our vehicles. They do shut off while the vehicle is in use. However, it's still another distraction. Cell phones, people trying to call them. We do have policies that say you're not supposed to use your phone while you drive, but it still happens from time to time. We look at our current procedures. We took a look at the type of equipment. Is there anything that we could do with the design of our equipment to make changes to make it better? And one of the most important things I think we looked at was accountability.
You can see this is a very thorough approach to what are the issues with respect to vehicle incidents. And, I've heard an awful lot of things out there like the cameras that watch people that are driving. There's the interactive piece that keeps track of acceleration and the like. Was that ever a part of your consideration, Jason?
We look at a system called Safety Star, and just happened that I was looking at that system at the same time that our PVI committee was going, and we were doing a separate pilot on Safety Star to see if there was any benefit for that system. And what that system looked at was driver behavior for acceleration, deceleration, turning, and speed. And it provided a warning, an audible warning to the driver when they got up to a threshold that says you're going to get a report happen. And we did find that did have some use in the company. It's just they're very, very expensive.
A marginal use as opposed to a significant use.
Exactly.
And your organization may find a different answer. I've got to know about that because it is something and it's written in the press. So let's take a look now at the fault tree diagram, and we're back to you, Jason.
So based on our Fishbone Diagram, we took a look at, we threw a whole bunch of stuff up onto our fault tree, and we picked the ones that we thought would give us the best bang for our buck, so to speak. So,
is that bang for buck or bang for a loony?
Well, it just depends on what the exchange rate is. So it'd be a buck now.
$1.05 now, okay.
You just never know. So, but when we take a look at it, we looked at journey management, and because we felt that fatigue is a factor with employees. You know, we have employees that are on call; they work all hours of the night. We looked at things such as different types of distraction, and it's anything from eating in the vehicle right to the computer sitting there, and driving habit. Is it a safe habit, or is it just something what we do? You know, do people just take it for granted? Because you really look at driving, a lot of people have been driving since 14, and they've developed those habits over many years. And at the same time with developing those habits, the level of risk or perceived risk that they have with driving has greatly diminished. You know, we look at work observations, so things our supervisors could do to try and keep safe driving alive in the company. And we also looked at the different types of attitudes that people had in our company. And we came up with some specific ideas and goals that we thought we could implement that would help improve driving behavior and increase the safety in our company.
Once again, a very thorough analysis and with significant input from the people that do the driving under conditions. I mean, it's not uncommon here in northern Alberta that you'll be at minus 30, minus 40 centigrade with a wind that's 80 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, it can happen, especially in, you know, winter storms that come in.
And so people are out there working in that, so risk factor just went up a lot. And, you know, one of the distractions that, as I remember on this team they paid attention to, was stuff that was on the dashboard. You know, you've got this shelf above your steering wheel, and people put things on it. Speak to me about that, Jason.
Well, yeah, like the dashboard of your vehicle ends up becoming a spot to put books, a spot to put your cell phone, maps, all sorts of things go up there. And when that driver turns a corner, stuff starts to fall off, and what do they want to do? They want to grab for it.
They're back to outcomes now.
So we have some outcomes that we thought, or that the team thought would be something that could be easily implemented in the field. So we looked at a journey management form that could allow over a series of days that they could use it for. It would be in 1 month pads, and it would give key indicators that our drivers needed to think about prior to driving to get their mind in the game and their mind on task, and that is for driving. We took a look at some sort of magnet that we thought we could bring in that our drivers could use to instill a bit of walking around their vehicle to look for hazards that they might hit prior to driving forward or backing up. Look for things that team leads could do, such as observations, something that is simple. So put that to their accountabilities and something that our drivers our teams need to do out in the field, along with driving up at Monday morning meetings before everybody starts to do their work.
And then Jason mentions accountabilities. It's not accountabilities or activities that the employees driving the vehicles are doing. There's accountabilities for their supervision and for upper management that say we need to continue to pay attention to this issue. If we went back a few slides to that chart that went up and down and up and down, as the accountabilities dropped off, the incidents went up. So accountability is an important part of a solution. So give us a couple more outcomes, Jason.
We just took a look at some of the other things, such as our current standards and best practices, and we found there wasn't a lot that we had to revise to make this work, right? Most was already there. That was the beauty of it. It was just that so it's a huge change from a perspective to start using this system. We took a look at we thought of bringing in a commitment statement from the employees that they would sign off after the initial training that would say they're committed to safe driving. And the other thing that we did is we posted a survey before we started our pilot. So we wanted to pilot. We wanted to see if this system would work. We asked a series of questions about safe driving of our employees prior to starting the pilot, and in the end, we brought in the same set of questions and re-asked them again to see if there was any difference in the answer.
So a pre-solution survey and a post-solution survey to see if it made any difference, and that's an important part of the tool set, because you're getting feedback on reality from your people before and after you've done what you can do to improve it. I think that's excellent. And back to accountabilities and activities that people have, and back to a thorough approach to trying to do something to reduce vehicle incidents. Part of the chest of Caterpillar to improve safety culture and safety bottom line, indicators, is a concept brought to us by one of the more famous safety in the last 50 years, Dan Peterson. And where is top management visible with respect to, in this case, vehicle incidents? How is management actively involved in vehicle incidents? What about line supervision and their focus on the performance of vehicle safety? Certain hourly employees are at most at risk, and so how do they actively participate? Where's your flexibility? Does a vice president do the same thing as an hourly employee? And feedback. The last one is the positive perception. That's the feedback from the workforce, hourly and salary. And Jason talked about was a pre-survey followed by a post-implementation pilot survey. And that's that feedback from the employees. So something we pay attention to. The first four deal with active engagement of our employees in the abilities, the activities that prevent the incidents from occurring. And that's a part of our line of defense against things like vehicle incidents and other employee-related incidents. So now, PACE system, what's PACE mean? That's an acronym.
We had developed a system of defensive driving in our company, and we called it PACE. And PACE stands for patience, assessing the situation while you're driving, control space, which is controlling the space around the vehicle, and executing responsibly. So make sure that whatever you do as a driver, you do it correctly and responsibly. So we had this system already in place, which was a refresher program that was in addition to our current vehicle safety orientation program. And wanted to revise it a little bit to include the following. So we brought in a journey management tool that our drivers could use as a driving tailboard. There's some flexibility in that we would allow for, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We brought in magnets to ensure that our drivers are doing walk-arounds. Now, the idea was our drivers are already supposed to do a walk-around for a trip inspection before they go, but this was more of a walk-around to look for hazards around the vehicle. So they would have to put the magnets on the vehicle when they parked, and when they drove away, they would take the magnets off of each side of the vehicle prior to driving, just so that it shows they did their walk around. And we wanted to include all drivers in our defensive driving refresher program that we had updated, and non-drivers as well.
So all drivers means every employee in the company?
Yeah, for this, it does. And
so 2,000 employees go through this kind of training? This is kind of a big expense.
But it wasn't. Because the idea behind it was so much as that this would be a supervisor management delivered.
So your leadership does training for your people.
Exactly, and it was done in a very simple way that even if you weren't experienced in giving this type of training, the program ran itself and offered points for discussion.
Yeah, the last couple of slides bring up to an important part in safety and incident reduction. And people at ATCO found that they really didn't need another set of policies and procedures. There were enough in place. They just needed to flout these policies and procedures, to do the appropriate training, to put in accountabilities, to get the detail in place so that the policies and procedures work. Policies and procedures give you, in many cases, a false sense of security. What are the accountabilities, the activities that deliver the policies and procedures? That truly is what this presentation is about. So talk to us about these tools, Jason.
Well, what you see here is the two magnets that were developed. We have a management magnet that was to be placed on the driver's side door, which gave them the key indicators that they were to think about before they actually started to drive that day to get their mind in the game.
Give us a couple examples here.
For example, fit for work. Fitness for work is really important, and we're not just thinking about drug and alcohol with this. We're thinking of things such as, is my mind in the game? Am I distracted by any things going on in my life that is going to prevent me from driving safely? Or am I fatigued? Other thing we look at is, did we do our pre-use inspection, our trip inspection prior to driving away? Is our vehicle ready to go? The clean and neat. There's all sorts of stuff in our vehicles that can move around, such as stuff on the dashboard, things in the back seat that our drivers will place there because they can't put it outside. Is it secured and in a manner that isn't going to prevent them from driving them safely? Then we take a look at the other magnet, which is a circle check magnet.
When I see that, it looks like every employee walks around every vehicle every time they get into it. This sounds a little cumbersome.
The idea behind it is if I can see around the vehicle as I walk up, so if I'm walking up from the passenger side and I can see in front of the tires on the passenger side, I don't have to walk up the passenger side. I can actually view it. We want them to view all sides of the vehicle before, so that we can prevent them from hitting something.
So it's just about checking to see if the tires are flat. It's about checking to see if the environment has any issues that might impact the driver, the vehicle, or the bystanders.
Well, where we work, we're in the electricity business. And, we're in farmer yards. We're back alleys. We're in all sorts of places where there's all sorts of hazards present that we could hit. And we want to prevent that with something as simple as our drivers making sure they look around their vehicle before they pull away.
Okay, so it's not a necessarily walk around the vehicle every time. It's observe to make sure there aren't issues involved with the vehicle and driver. Well, that's a practical approach. Now some training issues.
So what this slide is basically showing is the current type of training that we had in place. So we have training for our supervisors. We have practical training that involves skid control, collision avoidance, an observation by a certified driving instructor. And we took a look at the highs and what the change could be in the company. Gotten approval from upper management to make some of these changes. Basically, what ended up happening in the end is that we went to all above 3 remained the same, but the bottom one, the annual refresher, went from just drivers of vehicles that drove more than 3,600 kilometers a year to
That's
all employees.
about 2,000 miles then.
Yeah, approximately.
For those of you in the lower 48. And so everybody then had some type of training that would impact them. They all get magnets too?
Well, actually, we required magnets to be used by all employees that drive a company vehicle or roads.
Okay.
The other employees that didn't drive for the company were encouraged to take the magnets and use them at home, share with family. In fact, we asked them to take the annual refresher home and share it with their family.
That's it. So the far column on the right, impact of change, explain that to us.
That impact of change just shows how many more people that it would add to our training on an annual basis or on a go-forward basis. And so what is by adding in to all employees, that brought in another 800 employees.
And is that $30 the impact of $6,000 to train another 800 employees?
Well, that $30,000 was actually to take our current classroom session that we have that coincides with our practical session that we have, take and put that online. It can streamline the process.
And we move back a number of slides to the cost of vehicle incidents. The PVI is greater than 1,000. Approximately, within the last year or so, about how much have you spent to repair vehicles and employees?
About $8,000.
Okay. We're investing $30,000 with an effort to impact $80,000. And the real issue is that, when you have a fatality, there's numbers of $1 million. So this is making a risk assessment and mitigating the possibility and probability of a fatality.
Yeah, and that $30,000 is over and above what we currently spend.
Right.
We spend over $600,000 a year on our driver training, because something that we feel is really important.
So it's not so much a return on investment; it's a way to make sure that our employees and their families. This is good, but I think in the audience you need to understand there's a full impact that goes with this thing, and from that then there's a forward action plan, and it deals with a pilot. Could you explain the pilot to us, please? Yeah,
what we did is we piloted the program with about 2 employees up in our northwest region, which that's northwest Alberta, in the Grand Prairie area. And what we wanted to do is we covered 6 months, try and cover fall, winter, and spring, and we wanted our employees to try the tools that we came up with. These employees, these 200 employees, did the pre-survey, and they also did the post-survey. And based on those 2 surveys, that helped provide us with the next outcome after as to how we were going to use these tools based on their feedback.
Okay, and 200 employees is about 10% of the company, about 2,000 employees. And some of these are linemen and meter readers and supervision and upper management, because the Grand Prairie is an important part of your issue. And so pilot really is designed to be in a working area that represents your company. And so they're careful to choose where the pilot is going to be, and they make sure that it's a representative sample of what their company looks like. And then here's some interesting numbers.
So what we see here is this is compared to the Canadian Electrical Association. So these numbers are not just, the frequency here is not just based on preventable, but this also includes non-preventable vehicle incidents in our company. So and they're based on a threshold of $5,000 injury or death. And so we can see our numbers since 2005 have been steadily coming down. So this would include our driver running down the highway and a deer running out in front, causing $5,000 of damage, being stopped at a stoplight and somebody coming and hitting them from behind, if there was injury, death, or over $5,000 in damage, these would be included in our stats along with any preventable incident that we've had as well in this one. And as we can see, we're going down. And that's to see, but again, it still wasn't good enough. We want 0.
And then you put together a system, you pilot it in an important region of your organization, and it's about the rollout.
So in the rollout, we were ready by the second quarter of 2012 to roll out the process. It rolled out to all employees. It would be delivered by management and supervision. It endorsement from the president and from the vice presidents. And in fact, the vice presidents were responsible to deliver this training to their employees. So managers were trained by the vice presidents.
And this, again, is based on the experience with a pilot that says this is the right way to do it. And you can see that though Caterpillar assisted ATCO in delivering the solution, this is not a consultant-based training. Part of our objectives is that the customer develops the solution, owns the solution, and implements the solution. It's not about calling somebody from outside the company. It's about learning how to fish and then do it yourself. And this is a very good example of an organization that just look at an issue, following tools that lead to a comfortable solution, and living that solution by themselves.
So the outcomes were disappointing, but there's a silver lining, and I'll explain that at the end. When we look at it, at the end of 2012, we only had 80% completion, and that was disappointing because we want 100% completion.
So 10% of your 2,000 employees had been trained.
Exactly.
Thank you. And
this wasn't enough. It had to be 100%. We took a look, and this was interesting. Our backing incidents, for some reason, went from 33% up to 51%. We're still scratching our head on that one a little bit, but then we saw was our preventable vehicle incident frequency, which is based on incidents per million kilometers, went up from 1 to 1.3. And what I noticed when I'd go out to the field, that I would see infrequent use of the magnets and limited application of the window stickers that we had implemented as well. And I'll explain that in the next slide as to why this happened.
Okay, this is a level 4 check. Remember the 6 levels, and level 4 is a survey or interviews or options as to what's going on. And so roll it out. And this is plan, do, check, act. And it says, we've still got some issues. Let's look at the slide.
Is when we went and measured this, we measured it by training delivery. We went and measured the number of employees trained. We did take a look at the manager or supervisors as far as their accountability for the training. We just went and looked at how many people had been trained. So we focused more on the manager and supervisor accountability. We would have seen a higher number, I believe. The other thing is, it was a long implementation. We went for 3 quarters, and so that's 9 months. And with 9 months, one of the comments that I received from the field as feedback is, they said, guys, if this was really as important as you guys are saying, why would rollout take so long? Why would you allow us to have a year? Maybe he said 3 months tops. That shows more importance. So in the future, when we roll things out like this, we're gonna shut it right down to a shorter timeline to try and get it in faster to show that it's really important. And what will happen is if out in the field as a driver, and I saw that one of my coworkers wasn't using the magnets, and I had to, that created a lot of questions as, well, why do I have to use it when he doesn't? Well, the fact was that other person hadn't been trained, but they don't know who's been trained or not. So it created an atmosphere of that it wasn't that important.
So it's part of it's a morale issue. It deals with the importance that your employees perceive for a particular issue, and 1 year is not the right perception. And that deals with accountabilities, and we have accountability in a region to train all of our people, not in 12 months, but in a short period of time. and when accountability, not just Jason to go out into the field to see if it's done, but from supervision and upper management. And remember the incident reaction cycle that Jason talked about at the start of this. I tend to go back to business as usual. And what we really need to do is to focus on making sure that we don't do that. And these are good lessons, and as you put together, you and the audience put together your vehicle incident issues and you're addressing those, keep this in mind. We need a continual emphasis on it. The front slides that showed the up and down nature said, if you want to resolve preventable vehicle incidents, you need a continuing emphasis on it. Just we'd have emphasis on safety. You can't not do these level 1 activities that make a huge difference. You have to stay engaged level 3 accountabilities with your people every day. And so that leads to the end of the presentation. And Abby, kind of back to you, and let's do Q&A.
All right, thanks so much, Mike and Jason. The first question is for Jason. How do you manage incidents where drivers were found to be non-compliant with your requirements?
In regards to the requirements under this program, came back to a supervisor issue. And so if people weren't working the proper tools that they were given, that became a performance issue and for the supervision in the field to deal with.
So explain PACE again, please.
PACE again stands for patient, assess, consider space, and execute responsibly.
And kind of not only a mantra, but accountability for hourly and salaried employees, something that dropped off that made a difference. Back to you, Abby.
Okay, Mike, I believe it was in slide 5 you gave some statistics for reaction times, and we had a participant interested in knowing what the source of those statistics is.
Okay, Jason.
One was from the Royal Automobile Commission, and I think the other one was from the University of Utah.
So U.S. and Canadian research that goes on. Where'd you find this research?
I just Googled it and went to as many different studies that have been done out there to gather data.
Can you take us back to slide 5, Abby, or do you want me to, or is that a satisfactory answer?
Take care of it, thanks.
Okay, next question.
Okay. How much impact did the magnets have on results, and what were the results reductions in claims related to exiting a parking space?
Yeah, these are good questions. I like them, and I'm glad that Jason's here to answer them.
Well, one of the things that we found when we looked at our statistics is exiting parking spaces was not really where we were having our backing incidents. In fact, we've had a policy in place for years that all drivers are to park to pull ahead. But what happened is most of our backing incidents happened on construction sites. Our drivers would pull into an area, or meter readers might pull down the driveway thinking they can turn around in the driveway, but they can't and have to back out of the driveway. But it was generally wasn't from parking in a parking stall. We saw very little of those. We saw things such as where we have a driver get into the vehicle. They did walk around. They got into the vehicle, and what would happen is they would take a phone call before they drive away, or they would do some paperwork before, and instead of getting back out and walking around their vehicle, somebody in a small car might have backed in behind them, and a guy was trying to back up to avoid hitting the car in front of them to pull out. They ran into the car behind them.
So circle check is not before you get into the vehicle, but it's before you pull away.
That's right. We've instructed our employees that the circle check must be the last thing you do before you drive.
Tell me a little bit about magnets, because that was one of the questions.
So the magnets, the idea behind the magnets was to bring the habit of doing their walk around. For those people who hadn't instilled that habit yet. So we wanted our employees to use those for the first 3 months of the employment, all new drivers. Anybody who had been involved in a vehicle incident that was in relation to back would have to use those magnets again as well. And they would place the magnets on the driver's side door. So they'd have the journey management magnet on the driver's side door, and they'd place the circle check magnet on the rear 1/3 of the vehicle on the passenger side.
Next question, Abby.
Okay. What majority of the root causes of your PIs at ATCO?
Great question. When we take a look at it, from backing incidents, it would be failure to do a proper walk around. That would be one of them. Again, also with motivational factors. We had one just recently where there was 2 employees in a vehicle, and one employee jumped out of the vehicle to go and take at something, and the driver of the vehicle decided, well, I'm going to back this truck up into location into the spot so they could start work. And where to use spotters, he didn't use a spotter because he felt that, I can do this, right? And he backed into something.
So that's backing related. What about on the road related root causes?
Driving too fast for conditions. You have a lot of snow and ice up here. We have a wide variety of terrain that we operate on. And again, it would all be come into motivational factors.
As I am here, there's about a half a meter of snow lying around, and certainly driving conditions are an issue. And then a consistency of following good driving process and personal accountability.
That would be it. Yeah, because we'll take a look at, you're supposed to use a spotter. You get into something. You're supposed to do a walk around, and you drive ahead and you hit something that you didn't see. Your trucks are large. We have big vehicles that we operate, and even the blind zone in front of the vehicle could be 12 yards or more.
What we've got is, humans, and I'm one of them, has a tendency to go back to the way it's always been. And so the original rollout has a lot of emphasis on doing the job correctly with detail, but 6 months from now, we kind of rest where we were, and we're not as careful, and our accountabilities drop off, and our supervision pays attention to the latest outage, and a vehicle incident occurs. So it's kind of a culture that says, I do it correct. I have my personal accountability for doing that. And that would tell me that from time to time you have to re-emphasize the whole area of vehicle accountability in reality.
Well, what was really interesting is after our leadership saw results implementing this system, and it didn't do what we were hoping it would do. Right? It's amazing now because there's a renewed focus now from upper management and a drive by them to ensure that all supervisors, managers, and up have part of their accountability for actions for this year is to have a huge focus on safe driving.
So it's measured, it's what gets done?
Exactly.
I love it. That's fundamental to safety no matter what. Next question, Abby.
Can you quickly remind our listeners, Jason, what CEA stands for?
C stands for the Canadian Electrical Association.
So this all of the electrical utilities across all of Canada, all 36 million serviced by utilities.
Well, it's not everybody because membership is an option, but it's approximately 32 members across Canada.
And your membership, you've got about 2,000 employees in yours. Approximately how many total headcount in the 32 members?
Oh, that would be hard to give, because it varies. Right?
Okay, 10,000.
It would be, yes, because we got some major players in there like Hydro-Quebec. We got One from Ontario. Huge companies.
I hope that answers the question, Abby. Next.
Were there any incentives associated with your approach?
You talk about money here? Okay, Jason.
As far as giving prizes or awards, no. From a standpoint, what our thought was is anything we had implemented just to reinforce our safety standards and best practices that were already in place, such as walking around your vehicle, parking to pull ahead, using a spotter. Those things were already there. These tools are there to just reinforce the activity. So we took the approach that, there will be recognition when we see people doing it correctly, but as far as a safety incentive where you're getting some sort of a prize or anything like that, we didn't think that that was necessary. That's all we were asking our employees to do was to do the right thing.
Next, Abby.
Okay. What role does disciplinary action play, if any, in your approach relative to violating established procedures and policies?
Well, you're hitting all the hot points here. This is a good crowd that's in the audience. Jason.
Well, we do have a positive performance program in place, and it's a multi-step process, and something that, from my standpoint, I won't see those outcomes after. That is kept between the employee, their supervisor, and human resources. So I don't see how many of our employees post-incident have been disciplined. But it does happen. In fact, right now I just got an email pop up on my screen because somebody's putting a black box in a vehicle because somebody's had too many speeding tickets.
Okay, so not punitive to the employee, but preventive.
Yeah.
And the person here that's dealt with ATCO for a number of years, discipline, punitive discipline, is not really a part of their culture. I guess if you willfully neglect or violate the rules, there would be punitive discipline, but it is rare in this company of 2,000 employees. That doesn't drive safety. It's not fear. It's accountability for doing the job right and following the procedures that the hourly employees have had part in making sure exists, a practical approach and an accountability to do the right job. And I have time for another few questions, so you're on, Abby.
Okay. Jason, did you look at ways to reduce exposure risk by reducing the amount of trips?
That's something that's very difficult for us to do because our trips generally that our employees are based is because they have to go and actually do the work. Company isn't set up like we don't deliver goods. Our job is to build a power line and maintain that power line so that we can provide efficient electricity and reliable electricity to our customer base. So the people that are driving are out there for a specific function. So one thing that we did is we really stressed the importance of, with management, for our non-essential staff. So our employees that aren't required to be out there because we have an outage or because they're out there building a line. Employers say on their way to a safety meeting or just going out for a site visit just because. We really stress the importance with them of if the weather's bad, you don't go. There's a need for you to be on the highway. Is what you're doing going to affect our business? You know, and the answer is no. Because of that, then don't go.
I'd call that probably a marginal trip reduction. Have you done anything like the electronic meters that allow your meter readers to drive by as opposed to stop in and back in?
We do have some of those. Like for our meter readings, we can actually ping the line, and we can get the information back in a central location. In fact,
about percentage.
I wouldn't have the answer.
You know, that is an effort to reduce drive time. And the real issue is to prepare people no matter where they are, no matter when they're there, no matter what the conditions, safe. And there's a sidebar that says we'll reduce trips. Yet, no matter what the circumstance, we're preparing our people not to have incidents. And though we're at the end of the limit here, Abby, we still have more time. So I see that you still have a fair percentage of people on. If you want to keep asking questions, I'm letting Jason out of this room until you're done.
Right. Well, we have a truly interactive event here. We have some questions that have just popped up in response to some of the other responses and answers that Jason has given.
I'm just going to keep going until you cut us off, then.
Okay. Here we go. The last comment whereby the black box was being installed in an employee's vehicle, would this not be grounds for dismissal rather than spending money?
No, not necessarily. Again, our idea isn't just if the employee's a good employee from a work standpoint, but they have some behavioral issues with their driving, we're going to, based on our culture and our company, we want to work with that employee to change their behavior to make them a better driver and help them become safe. And in fact, with some of the employees that we've used black boxes with, we saw a huge improvement in driving from that.
It's kind of immediate feedback piece. So as I was up here working with ATCO, I drove out to one of the remote locations with one of the vice presidents of ATCO and a black box in his car, and that led to a 2-hour drive. So there was plenty of time to talk about it. And his comment really reflects exactly what Jason said. There's some things you're just not aware of. It's acceleration, it's cornering, it's following, and all those things. And as he got his beeps, he demonstrated a couple of things that would lead to beeps. He said that he too had been impressed that these are things that were just kind of blind spots. He didn't recognize it, and that the black box actually did improve his awareness and his day-to-day technique. Not put in there to punish people, but to improve their performance through better awareness and then accountability to follow the process that the black box needs to. And go ahead, Jason's going to have one more comment.
And a black box, I want to really stress this, a black box is not going to stop backing incidents. A box isn't going to stop somebody who they're not on task and they run into the back of another motor vehicle. It's not going to stop those things. What is going to show or correct is bad driving behavior.
Okay, next one, Abby.
How would a situation be handled if an employee self-reports that she is too tired to drive safely? Would disciplinary action be applied?
No. In fact, in our company, we employees, like during an outage, we had one employee, and this was one that we showed as a safety positive right up to the pressure level. We had an outage situation going on where we had numerous crews out on site, and this employee was sent home, given 8 hours to rest. At the end of the 8 hours, the employee, he went out to get into his truck, and he realized, I'm too tired. And he called in, told his supervisor, look, you know what, I have little kids at home, I was trying to sleep, but we had one that was really sick, and I was my sleep is very disruptive. I don't feel it's safe for me to be out on the highway and driving. And they said, great, you go home, you get some more rest because you need it. And they found somebody else that was fit to come in and do the work.
That's a culture of correct. Next question, Amy.
Have considered banning cell phones in the trucks altogether, or are they required?
The issue that we have in our company is a lot of our switching that takes place and instructions that our employees get from central work desk as to where the work is, where they have to go, communicated over the cell phone. It is required that they're not allowed to use a cell phone, and employees who have been caught using cell phones while driving actually have been disciplined.
The difference between cell phones and radios, so you have radio communication as well. Explain that, because there's more than one distraction device in a service truck.
Yes, we do have two-way radios in our trucks. We have yet to ban the use of those while driving, and it's one of those things that might be coming. That might be the next step. But we haven't seen any incidents as a result of our guys using the two-way radio, because the conversation is generally kept very short and to the point.
Now, a cell phone call comes in, you're a driver, and you have to answer it. What's your policy with respect to that?
Our policy would be to let the phone roll over to voicemail, and the next safe location where they can safely get off the highway and return a phone call, that's when they're supposed to do it.
So they pull off the road and answer it.
Well, they can't just pull off the road. Like in Alberta right now, standing on the shoulder of the highway to take a call is an offense.
it's an illegal act.
It is, yes.
So you have to pull off into
like maybe off into a farmer's field or an approach, find a parking lot somewhere that it's safe or legally allowed to be stopped. Roadside pullout, for example, would be a great spot to pull over and stop.
Tim Hortons says donut and a coffee.
Right. Well, exactly. Now we're looking at, helping our employee get refreshed and take a phone call.
Okay, good answer, and I hope you don't mind a little bit of humor on my part. Next one, Abigail.
Okay. Jason, have there been any improvements in your at-home or off-job incident stats?
In fact, well, we don't keep track of the off-the-job stats, but what we do find is a lot of anecdotal evidence from office staff talking about how going through the program has changed their driving behavior.
Thank you. Abby?
So I just put in a request for final questions. I'm not seeing any come through here in the next few seconds. I'll just wrap it up, but I'll take this opportunity to remind everyone on the line, all of our participants, that you will receive an email today with a link to the recording of the webinar and also the slide deck. And there will also be information in that email about our next month's webinar, so I hope you'll all register for that as well. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Mike, so much for presenting another wonderful webinar, and also Jason for a lot of knowledge and experience that you brought to the call as well.
Thank you very much, those in the audience. This is something that I truly enjoy, and I found that our customers that participate in them, as is, enriching experience. Abby, thank you very much, and to all those in the audience, drive safely.